The time is 6:08, April 24th. And
We were on time.
I'm calling this special meeting work plan workshop to order. This is different than a regular meeting. So let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Chair Hernandez.
Present.
Commissioner Allen.
Present.
Commissioner Vidor.
Present.
Commissioner Kismorio is absent. Commissioner Miller. Absent for now. Commissioner Weiss.
Here.
We have 4 in attendance. We have a quorum. But I would like to say this is a special meeting. And so you have the agenda in front of you, and I also gave you the list of topics that were mentioned at our March meeting. Because this is a workshop, I request that you commissioners don't speak over each other. Be conscious that we are being recorded, but it's more of a relaxed, even though we're at the dais, more relaxed and free-flowing. But again, if you can, wait to be noticed if more than one person wants to speak. So with that, I turn over to you, Madam Chair.
Through the chair, I just also, from a technical standpoint, wanted to inform the commission that the max amount of microphones that can be turned on at one point are 4. So in case you guys are wondering why your microphone isn't working.
Thank you, Manny.
Okay, thank you. So we have some the items mentioned at the March meeting that we would like to include into our work plan 2025.
Right, and if I may, to get you started, because I think the most involved item is the long-term funding for the art. Commissioner, the ad hoc committee met with the city attorneys, Veronica Nebb and Randy. It was Commissioner Vidor, Commissioner Miller was on for a short time. Unfortunately, Commissioner Wise could not attend that Zoom meeting. But I think at this point, if through the chair, Commissioner Vidor wants to go over what was discussed, and I'll add in where necessary, but go over what was discussed. It was a very good Zoom meeting. It lasted over an hour, and a lot of interesting input.
Okay, thank you. How did it go, Dahlia?
So I would say it was a very productive meeting. So you were given the last iteration version of the long-term funding for the arts, and the notes that I have here from the meeting. I'm just going to jump to the ones that we're going to cross off. So if we go to item E, which is amusements. When it was being, I don't want to say rewritten, but when it was edited, I failed to take out the part that says 1 and 0.33% of the annual revenue of amusements or an annual public arts and cultural benefit contribution. That can all be cut all the way to the point where it says public arts cultural fund. So that whole first sentence can go. Because we're not going to be asking for percentages, we're going to be asking for specific amounts. And it's going to be more individualized for each one of these items,
Which line was that?
that's E for amusements, and just the first sentence. We're taking out the percentage part.
So to clarify through the chair, that's 1 and 0.33% through to the end of that sentence, public events in Vallejo, is that correct? Or-
Public Art and Cultural Benefit Project Fund.
Project fund. Thank you, Commissioner Vidal.
So the sentence there would be to fund the grants. That's the only sentence, correct?
That one needs to be rewritten, so that's part of the thing that we need to massage with the attorney, with Attorney Nebb, and the wording that would go into that to ask for specific amounts out of the amusement parks, the fairgrounds. And so what we need to do is we need to, from the amusement park amounts, we need to determine the dollar amount of contribution that we would want. Like, we want X percent of whatever they're getting, as opposed to 1/3% of their revenue, which is what I had originally put in. So so Six Flags gives a certain amount of money annually to the city of Vallejo, and we would like the opportunity to ask for a percentage of that to go towards arts and culture in the city. The casino is not here yet, but we all agreed that this would be a good time to put this in so that we can have it prepared for when the casino, if the casino comes in. Golf courses are a question. Some of these, she said, could be tabled for the period of time until they start making revenue. So Blue Rock Springs is a public course, and so they don't really have any revenue. Hidden Brook is a private course. I don't think that we could ask anything from them. But the public course, Attorney Nebb said that once they start building up some revenue, that we would be able to add in a percentage for them as well. And then the fairgrounds are being completely redone in many ways. So they're talking about bringing in like large artists. You know, La Russell was just there, and but they're thinking about bringing in larger concerts and larger events. So they don't have any revenue right now either, just as their current, the way that they are. But in preparing for the future, we would also want to put something in there. So the development of the fairgrounds and their revenue, yeah. And we would have all of this in the policy, but we could table it until they get revenue. And we would have some wording for that as well.
So the only thing pretty much remaining would be the amusement park
For the time being.
for the time being.
Yeah.
And then the amusements will be rewritten, and 2, 3, and 4 are just all pretty much tabled or pending.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we would need to keep them in the policy, but what we would say is that we would not be requesting any funds from them currently.
Before we move on, I wonder, between Councilman Mateus and Staff Taylor, do we still have that number? It was looked up what the Six Flag number was of the total, and if we could let's just get a number right now instead of, if possible.
It was less than, I don't have the exact number, but it was less than what was reported. So it was less than 100,000, I believe it was.
You mean the total revenue that they pay to the city? Hold on. So what I saw in the budget book, is that there's 1.2 million, almost 1.2 million that is paid to the city of Vallejo by Six Flags. It's a line item under the revenue line, but I don't know what that goes towards. Ms.
No,
Taylor.
but when I asked, actually, I sent that email to finance, and I believe I sent you back the response, but it was less than $1 million that I was told that they received from Six Flags. So we can check again, but that was when I spoke to the budget person and the finance director.
And for this commission's awareness, several things I have to probably share out tonight. I had, at our first budget workshop, actually asked the city manager to set aside some funding from that revenue for beautification-related projects in that area. I mean, you guys see Fairgrounds Drive. You see that whole area needs some love. So I don't know if that will make its way into the budget, but I still think it's within the purview of this commission to, make a recommendation as to what you would like to see happen. And then we'll consider it as a body.
So it would be okay if we kind of threw a number into our funding or for our asks?
What came out of the Zoom meeting with the city attorney's office is, yes, we can put in an amount and then go forward. Whether it is approved at that amount or a lesser amount. But it was, again, it was a very, I think, fruitful meeting, I'll put it that way, whereas it's, yes, this, put it in here, even if it's nothing that's going to happen immediately, but at least it'll be on the books. So that was, I think, a huge step forward. So that's where we are with that. But I want, as you go through this, I have a question of your process. I know Commissioner Vidor is reporting out, but are you then going to go back and then make some suggested changes at that time? So right now you're just reporting out, and then the remaining commissioners and the remaining commissioners will then talk about possibilities of amending. Okay, just want to make
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and it's a percentage and not an amount.
Oh, I thought you said it was an amount, not a percentage.
No.
Okay.
Attorney Nebb recommended that we ask for a contribution of a percentage of what they're getting, because we never know how much they will actually be getting, and if we're asking for $200,000 a year, and they're only getting $200,000 from them because who knows why, then we would get zero. But if we ask for a percentage of that amount, we're much more likely to get that. And then at least we'll get something as opposed to nothing.
Commissioner Allen?
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss, I didn't mean to step on your toes. Did you get your question answered?
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to go back to the process.
Yeah, I did too. So the question really was about amusements. We've taken out that sentence, and then item 1, amusement park. So to clarify, it is going to be us asking for a percentage of what the city gets. The city gets between $1 million or whatever it is, and then we would be asking, in this instance, for a sub of that from the city's settlement with, the annual fund that the amusement park gives to the city to cover, I'm assuming, a lot of different things. So we're advising city council to take a certain percentage of that lump sum, as opposed to, this is where I'm getting with this, when I was serving on the commission many years ago, there had been talk of a percentage per ticket sales that then would be in the aggregate at the end of the year, at the end of the season, or whatever it would be, and it was even like, 0.01% of one ticket, or whatever that would be. So that's off the table now. Just to clarify, so we're talking about a percentage rather than lump sum, is a percentage of what the city is actually receiving from Six Flags. Is that correct?
That is up to the commission to decide this evening.
Okay.
That was what was discussed instead of a lump sum, a percentage, because I think it varies from the 1.2 million or 1.6 million to less than a million that I was told. So a percentage would be a percentage of whatever
Right.
it's, you know, if the park does well, you know, your percentage, the amount you receive, if the park doesn't do as well, your percentage would be lower. But that's the discussion tonight for this commission to decide how you want to address receiving something from Six Flags or any other amusement parks that we may get in the future.
Understood. Thank you.
If I may expunge on that, I think it seems to me if Six Flags is already giving money to the city, it is easier for us in this capacity to ask the city to make part of the budget giving it. So that's money the city's already been given. I think separate to that, we could also, this falls more into the category of grants, independent partnerships, things like that. There could be room to also reach out to Six Flags and more explicitly be like, you know, Six Flags, out of the goodness of your heart, would you like to give us some money? Can we make an arrangement? But I think that falls into a totally different category because that money would not be money the city would ever touch. And I think it might be easier for now to focus in on asking the city to give us some of the money that is already being put into the pot.
I would piggyback on that and say that what you're talking about is if you go farther up to C, item number C, which is public-private partnership, or a P3, that would be much more of a P3 kind of arrangement. And I don't know if we would necessarily want to put that specifically into this, or if that would be something that we would ask for after we have this ratified, and then we could go back and say, would you like to start a P3 with the city for the Arts and Cultural Commission?
I do think it is better to not. It is better, I think, to give us the wiggle room on those independent private-public, the public-private partnerships of not putting a set amount in this document that then has to go through the city, and instead just have the piece of the funding document say we will pursue these partnerships, because then it could be way more. Or you start that conversation and they're like, oh, no, that's too much, but we'd be interested in something else. I think it's important to build in, just establish as a fact that we will pursue those things as it's written here, but not to limit ourselves by putting in an exact amount that we're going to ask them for when that is not a government entity.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. The other item that we talked about was item D, which is the big ticket item. That's the where we would ask for money from a home sale, vehicle sales, and watercraft sales. This is a voluntary fee, so Attorney Nebb was not okay, did not feel that it was okay for us to ask for the money as part of the sale or the buyer or the buy, because that would require a vote by the people, because it would be a fee would be considered tax. So what I wrote in here was what we wrote in here was that this is a voluntary. Where is it? It's a voluntary. Yeah. So what we said was we wanted this to be a voluntary contribution. And what we talked about was how we would work that out. So the question would be, would this be through the title companies, or how would we work that out? She seemed pretty amenable to it, as long as it was a voluntary fee that we were asking, and people could just say no if they don't want to do it. And then the question would also be, will we be asking it from the buyers or from the sellers? The sellers are going to, and she pointed out, the sellers are going to be the ones that are getting the money. Maybe they will be more willing to contribute the $100. Maybe we should ask from both. You know, I mean, that portion still needs to be worked out. And she recommended that we talk to the stakeholders about this, so that would be the real estate agents. I know several in town, we all know many in town. And I think that it would be easy for us to just, set up a little meeting maybe and ask them what they think, how they think this would work, and if they think that this would be acceptable either by the buyers or the sellers, and if they'd be willing to do this.
Yeah, I mean, on my notes, I see that we were or that you had to try to specify the contributor and how to collect and the developer requirements for them.
Yeah. So one of the things that she recommended was it would be just a checkbox of yes or no, and it would be a separate sheet that would come from the title company, just requesting if they would like to voluntarily give $100 towards this fund that would be part of their quality of life here in Vallejo.
And then would that then be sent directly to our project fund? From the
Yes.
developer directly to our fund?
Yes. And that's how that would need to be worked out.
Is this where she talked about tax deductible down versus non-tax deductible?
Yes.
And so, do you want to?
Oh, yes, thank you. So one of the things that she talked about is if it is tax deductible, it is more amenable to the givers. And so if we were to have it facilitated by, say, the Solano, I wrote something down, by the Solano Community Arts Foundation. So that would be a 501c3, and then they would be able to get a tax break for that as well. So that's who it would go through as a possibility, or some other nonprofit organization that would cover that.
I do, sorry,
Yes.
to keep plowing on this, I was very disappointed to miss the call. My kid was sick, and I was a single dad for the day, so it was a tricky time. But I do just want to backtrack 1 second. The question about buyers versus sellers, I do think it is tricky. There is a question of essentially, do we want to ask a buyer to pay $100 more is sort of what it comes down to. And maybe it's worth asking both. I do think, thinking about the nature of the sales, I think the person who is moving to Vallejo is more likely to say, yeah, I would like to give $100 for the arts than the person who is leaving Vallejo. I do think that is like a key. There's like, why do I want to give money to Vallejo? I'm on my way out the door. Not, hopefully people are leaving feeling great about it and everything is good. But the reality of that, who the buyer is and who the seller is in that situation, I think an emphasis on the person buying, to me, I think, is much more likely to end up with people actually doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and we all talked about that as well, and that the idea of it when we developed it was that it would be the buyer that would contribute the money because they're buying into this community, and they would want it to be the best community that they can get.
And just a point, just because someone's selling their home doesn't mean they're leaving Vallejo. They may be moving up or downsizing. So, an empty nester may want something smaller. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a seller is moving out of Vallejo.
I just want to add a quick point. Commissioner Vidor had talked about wanting to engage the realtors in discussions around some of this stuff, and I think it's important from implementation standpoint, not only to think about like, okay, how do we perhaps include this in the escrow file or the title or any of those transactions, but also like, is there something tangible this commission can create that can be included in a welcome package for a buyer, right? So that it's like, hey, welcome to Vallejo. We would love for you to invest in the arts. And then by the time they get to the transaction, it's like the second or third or fourth time they're seeing that same message, as opposed to like a line item in a transaction where you're just trying to flip through documents as fast as possible. So I'm just throwing that idea out there for you guys to, work with the realtors on getting something that brings value to them and then value to the commission and the city.
Right. Excellent point. But Attorney Nebb did say it would be, hopefully do a separate sheet, so it wouldn't be in all of the other transactions. But yeah, having a packet would be great, something that the commission can work on.
I understood that there used to be a new homeowners packet that they would get, and I don't know if they got it from the Chamber of Commerce, bless you, and or Visit Vallejo or the Vallejo Convention and Visitors Bureau. But that used to be a thing that everybody would get, would be a welcome packet from Vallejo, and I know it included a magnet with all of the telephone numbers on it, all the important telephone numbers on it, and there were other things that you would get with it. And I think that would be like a one sheet in there. Councilmember Matias, are you suggesting that it would be reiterated in more than one place, or that it would just be in the one welcome packet?
You'd want to have it in as many places as possible so that like folks are, getting the message from us as a city that we really want them to be committed and invested in their city, and that can look, that investment can look very differently, right? Like, we want you to contribute to the arts. We want you to sign up your kiddos to these programs, right? And so, obviously, the realtors is a very natural starting point for you guys to think about what that may look like. But I would say that could also extend to working with businesses to, like, create some collateral with other commissions across the city. It doesn't need to be anything, complex, but just something that puts that message out there enough times that someone receives it and then says, there's an interest here around the arts. Like, let me actually contribute in this way.
Yes, in fact, during the conversation, it was mentioned that in order for a buyer or a seller to be willing to donate, it's what are they donating to? And so that the commission perhaps could draft a packet, the arts, because there's different areas of art that there's different areas in the city that have been neglected, which we talked about on the Zoom meeting. And so the piggybacking on what Councilmember Matias said, that perhaps a packet of our art program, we have to establish, this commissioner would have to establish what the art program is and how it benefits the city. That was discussed.
Back in the day, and I do have a copy, I don't think I have it with me, but there used to be a brochure that the city would put out that listed all of the events that the city supported, all of the arts organizations that were in the city, and I think it had some images of public art as well. And maybe we could look into creating something like that that would also, mention, hey, that you could give some money to the arts and culture in Vallejo, and this would contribute to our 4th of July parade, which you will, want to be part of, and, you're invited to be part of. And our grants program, which was, pretty successful, I think, for the 2 years that we were able to give away the money. We got some good art out of that, and good culture, and some great engagement with the community. So, I think that people would like that, especially if there are artists coming here. And I know a lot of artists move to Vallejo because it's one of the few affordable places that people can purchase a home. So they might also be willing to give money to a program like this because it is in their wheelhouse and something that will support them as well.
What did they say about the vehicle sales and the watercraft sales?
She was not so hot on those. She thought there wouldn't be nearly as much buy-in, and we didn't even really know where the watercraft sales would be because do we sell? And I know that people sell boats privately in the marina. I think we were just like covering all bases of all large ticket sale items. I mean, I don't know why we would need to necessarily take it out.
Commissioner Weiss?
Thinking this through, I do feel like it might be, this is kind of the opposite of what I was saying with the public-private partnership conversation, but I feel like we should limit ourselves here, I guess, whereas we shouldn't limit ourselves there and really go all in on trying to make this happen. And I think narrowing in on home sales, I do think there is this level of exactly what you're talking about. Like, I know that's how I ended up in Vallejo, is this person who works in the arts, and this is where I could afford to buy a house, and I am so happy to be here. And I think that there are a lot of people moving, and that is the world of the people who would like to be part of it. They would like to feel both people, longtime residents who might be changing houses within it, things like that, but also people who maybe don't want to feel quite so much like gentrifiers that are moving here, and they're like, how can I contribute to this city so I am not just coming in as an invader, like I would like to already start. And I think that is some fertile ground there. And it's true, whereas people might just come in from Benicia or from Walnut Creek or from wherever to buy their car at Avery Green Honda. A much more limiting world, and it's just a completely different mindset. Whereas if you're buying a house, you were thinking about community, you were thinking about where I want to live. It's so interesting seeing these folklorico dancers outside as we're talking. It's just really good. I can see the pamphlet already thinking about them, and I do feel like thinking about very concrete budget asks that we should ask for in the very near future, that perhaps asking for some funds to create and distribute this pamphlet is a great way to start, which would be something that would add up to instituting this thing. It would be a key part of it, but even before we are actively asking for additional money, it is still a great thing just to have be in like a welcome packet. And I wonder if it might be a good idea to just make a very concrete budget ask of some limited funds to distribute and create that pamphlet.
You mean from the city,
I
out
think-
of the fund?
Oh, I'm sorry. Part of your work plan includes a budget. So if in fact you want to create a pamphlet for marketing or whatever, come up with a budget, and that will be part of your work plan. So you want to do some type of a flyer to go into a welcome packet, research how much you think that will cost, how many you think you need to print, so forth and so on, and that can be part of this.
I'm asking a question in relation to what is being discussed. Have you guys like talked about the parameters of the Public Art and Cultural Benefit Project Fund? Like, do you have some sense of like what that fund would look like, what it would be used for? I'm just curious. Like, have you gotten that far down in the process?
I don't think we have. I mean, when we,
Not saying you should. I was just curious.
I think what we've been doing is whenever we do have a budget, we're very grateful for it. And depending on the parameters and the guidelines given with that money, we then create what we're going to do with it, how many people are involved with it, how the breakdown of it would be for all that can apply and that qualify within those parameters. What we would do is we have to follow the timeline given with that money. So within the timeline and the amount, we try to open it up and make it as public as we can through our commission, so that we can have everybody that qualifies, they can file within that deadline. Everything that hits within that deadline is considered. Unfortunately, if they come after, they didn't make the deadline. And then during that process, we monitor each project that has been chosen to make sure it was seen through to complete the grant or the money given. So the intention of the money is served properly.
So hypothetically, if there were funds available to be a part of this fund, you guys wouldn't be starting from scratch. You'd have something that you would already be working from because you've rolled these out in the past.
Could I?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, just through the chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the city charter, and this, for the record, it's 3.60.010. Fund created and deposits. There is created pursuant to Section 713 of the Charter of the City of Vallejo, an inviolate special trust fund to be known and referred to as the, quote, public art, and I think the addition you wanted was and cultural benefit. All right, but public art, this does exist and has pre-existed the reincarnation, if that's the right word, of this commission, which was 8 years ago. So prior to this, going back to the city charter, the fund exists. It's just been an empty gas tank. And so all of this has been about trying to get ways to fund that and get money into it, and is asking as an advisory body to city council to specifically put funds into this that are, in the words of the city, inviolate, right? It's not part of the general fund. It's not the first thing that's thrown out of the balloon. The arts always get, and culture gets the first, that's the first cut. But the idea was, however the money comes in, whether it's from a theme park or, I'm glad that we're not using the phrase anymore, sin taxes or whatever, okay. We've moved beyond that. We're very progressive now. We're embracing pot clubs and
It's hazardous substances.
that's what it is, yeah, sugar and that sort of thing. But this specific fund, the idea though, as I understand it, it can't be a tax, right? It's voluntary fees, whether that's the packet that you get that says these are all the art projects that we've funded in the past, these are all the nonprofits, this is when Juneteenth happens, this is when all the cultural events as a part of this. What I think we're really talking about, however we decide what the percentage is that we're asking from a theme park or $100 from either the buyer or the seller of a large ticket item, whether it's a boat or a house, all of this really should go to here. And I think what we're trying to, and I'm not on this subcommittee this time around, this is the third time around, but I think what we're really trying to do is figure out a simple way of getting a QR code in people's hands, a voluntary way of saying this money, if you care about the arts and culture, if you care about all these events, they will somehow benefit by this aggregate fund. So we've talked about, for example, large figures of $200,000. We didn't just magically, pull that out of the air. We had a $50,000 re-granting pilot program that we had the first year, then we had $100,000 the second year. Now, we wanted to double that, and because this came out of ARPA funds and not general funds, 2 years, thank you for keeping me honest. It's been so long. So in terms of how this fund, to answer your question, it does pre-exist all of this, and I think to Commissioner Weiss's point about focusing on one or two things that we can definitely go forward with, I'm wholeheartedly for that. But I think that ultimately, however that Venn diagram happens, all those arrows point to this fund, right? So that if we can raise $200,000 and that becomes the fund where the re-granting program pulls the money from to give to artists, to give to the community. And as Commissioner Vidor said, it was successful. It's just a question, as it always is, to get the money. And of course, with the hotel tax fund in San Francisco, or the transient occupancy tax, right? If things are going well, you've got a lot of money. If you don't, you don't. But if it's a flat fee, that's all you're ever going to get. And there's probably some reasons to just ask for a flat fee off of some of these. I think the $100 from a house sale, it's not unheard of. But I know that a lot of people, I have so much paperwork to go through, making it simple, asking the city specifically to fund, to pay a graphic designer to come up with an insert and something on the website that we can then utilize for all of these different asks so that we're all putting this to the same amount, or into the same fund, is part of what this discussion should be about. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to come back to, is that's why we're doing this. All the how we get the money and where we get the money and how much money we get needs to come back to this one fund. And the fact that a current sitting council member perhaps didn't know that it did exist, I just want to get that on the forefront of everybody's mind, knowing that here it is. You know, it's like we can go forward with this because we don't have to start over again. And we don't have to recreate the wheel. It's already there. It's just, it hasn't been a priority for so long. So all the economic development stuff that we talk about, and the arts is part of that, this should be a locus for some of those funds for the community, for all of those groups that are not being funded and areas of the city that have been underfunded. And we talked about the Crest, we've talked about South Vallejo, we've talked about ways that we can actually fund them to fund their arts and public art, but also other community projects.
So,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
There's a reason why I asked that question. We're talking about the project, the Public Art and Cultural Benefit Project Fund. I'm just trying not to get outside the bounds here. So, we had a discussion item 2 Tuesdays ago about the Causeway Bridge. And I made a referral to the Measure P Commission that 1% of the total cost of that project be considered by that commission to go into a public arts program. So that would be 260,000, because it's a $27 million project, $26 million project. Now, the Measure P Commission is going to consider it, but part of what I was trying to figure out, frantically, was if that actually got approved by that body, if they then went up to council, like, where would it go? And I've been asking a lot of those questions, like, over the past couple weeks. And so I want to continue that conversation with you guys, because if there is a vehicle, then that makes the job easier if we're able to, if the body's able to consider, the two bodies are able to consider it and approve it, and we would be able to get something rolling. I know the Measure P Commission is going to be considering it really soon.
Right, and as you and I discussed, it would be perhaps beautification, murals, of things of that nature. And I shared with him that the Beautification Commission sort of handles that, but it comes through us for the approval of the concept. However, that this commission at the time, and you can change your direction, was more interested in funding grants for individuals. That had been your focus for a long period of time. As well, that was one of your key focuses, is to give money to the artists and the nonprofits and cultural. So murals, perhaps, big artists, and you can have this, I'm leading in, so you can have the discussion with him regarding where you would like to see the money go, because he says it's a Measure P, then he may have some idea as what this commission would also like to see how the money be spent if we received it.
Through the chair, could I respond briefly?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And
Thank
then
you.
I have something else as well.
And first of all, thank you, council member, for being here. I have here, it's, you can see that. It's not really a prop. It actually is a document. This whole binder was put together. It's called Percent for the Arts Advisory Group. This is going back a decade now, I think. More than, probably two. All of these tabs in here represent a lot of work and manpower, women power, for a lot of different people overcoming the original objection. This goes back before the bankruptcy, right? When they were still flush and there was a sense of like, this is what we want to do. We're not going to scare off the developers by saying we want 1%. So the Causeway, there's a lot of projects, and I mentioned this before, and I'm sorry if I'm mentioning it again. North Mare Island, that's a $3 million project, right? That a percent for the arts or culture or beautification had been a part of that, we wouldn't really be having this conversation, because we would be funded, and this one particular fund would be to the tune of whatever that percentage would be. So again, we're not making this up. Other people have worked on this for years, and so I'm more than happy to share this with Measure P and any of the other commissions, beautification, to say that we are standing on the shoulders of not giants, and at least normal people who've worked a lot and done a lot of better minds than mine have really thought seriously long and hard about how to do this without deterring real estate, without deterring development, without deterring large projects by saying this is more money. So I'd like to, again, encourage us to say that a lot of this has been done, and I'm more than happy to share that.
Yeah, well, I suggest that you look, yeah, that's more than, it's almost 20 years old probably. And so look through, so have this commission look through it and see what it is that you want to do, because some of those things in there you may not want to address now. They may have already been addressed. So instead of giving them a document that it's, you know, that has aged, look through the document and see what is still beneficial for and current, and then go forward. But instead of just giving them the whole document, this commission, this is what we're doing tonight, is looking through and saying, out of the percentage for the art that committee, because that was, you know, almost, again, almost 20 years ago. Once this item, perhaps we do, one of the holdups was developers, the 1% for the developers. That sitting council at the time was not in agreement for that. So that was one of the things you can look at, you can go, you can address, but there's some other things in there that may be outdated or still may be current that you want to use. But I suggest not just saying, here, look at this book, but as a commission, go through it and decide what it is you may want to recommend.
Can we create an ad hoc that can come up with, or to create a budget where it shows everything that may or may not be in the bank account, okay? But hypothetically, if there was something in that bank account, what percentage could go to what? You know, like what could go for the upkeep and help, like for the Capitol stairs, and like all these things keep presenting themselves to our commission, and we have nothing to even offer, other than, I'm sorry, you know, we got to take it up with city
right.
council.
Do you want an ad hoc committee to do that, or why, or the full commission?
I
to
mean,
do that?
I wish it would be the full commission, but if we could get it started with an ad hoc, and
Well,
then
you
we
only
can
have 4
present it.
commissioners here, and so,
I mean-
right, and so let's try tackle, perhaps see what you can do instead of, you know, ad hoc committees, they meet, they don't meet, so forth and so on. So,
Okay.
and I just checked with Councilmember Matias to see how Economic Development Commission did it, and I believe he said the full commission came up with the work plan budget.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that was $10,000? Was that what they asked for?
They this year they asked for 20.
20,
Last
okay.
year I was the chairman and I got 11,000 for the commission. Thanks to the the Economic Development Commission. Sorry about that. Former, where I was chairing the commission back then, received from the city council 11,000. I do not believe the commission has expended those funds yet, but it's going to a banner program and a whole host of other items, including professional development training. This year, they've adopted another work plan that touches on 5 key areas that they've heard, you know, council talk about. And so they've assigned a $20,000 request to this new work plan, and that'll be coming before us in the next month and a half. So just to close the loop on the one item, I don't want to derail the conversation here any further, but what I would ask you guys is, like, at the next Measure P commission meeting, I suspect that referral that I made is going to be considered. And so I'll make sure that you guys are aware of when that meeting takes place, so that you can attend the meeting and publicly vouch for it, just in terms of the work you've seen take place in the city and the need for it. I was just trying to be responsive to, like, what I heard back in February when I first joined, and I'm hoping that we can, you know, get some dollars, like, flowing right away to start to make progress on things.
So it's important tonight to go through this, and if you can come up with numbers, like for the flyer is one, for other things that, refund, regranting is another, the 200,000 for that. You have a good history for that. So things like that could be discussed tonight by the four of you, and then move forward. Because the quicker we get the work plan done, hopefully the quicker this gets to council and receive funding.
I just wanted to mention that all of these items, all these revenue streams can be earmarked. So within this fund, so that's one of the uses of this fund, is that the money that is distributed doesn't have to all be in one huge pot. There can be a percentage that is designated, earmarked for printing of brochures. There can be a designated amount for regranting. There can, and then it can be earmarked for the different needs, and so that it's not just all coming out of one pot, so that we know exactly how much money we have and how much money we have in a budget to use for those specific items. And this policy was written to have numerous revenue streams, because we never know when one revenue stream is going to dry up. And so we wanted to make sure that we covered all those bases, so that there would always possibly be some money involved to be distributed to the artists in Vallejo. And really quickly, I wanted to go back to, on the final page, something that Commissioner Wise had mentioned was, is there any way for the citizens to just give money? And yes, and so we put that in there. So anybody is able to contribute to this fund and earmark the money. So somebody, a community member, could say, I would like to contribute such and such amount of money to this fund, and I want that money to be used for regranting, or I want that money to be used for a youth program within the arts and culture. So that, we put that in there as well, and that's I believe that's the final piece. I think, yeah. Oh, here it is.
And the donation would go through, since for it to be tax deductible, it has to go through the nonprofit.
So yeah, so that was one of the suggestions by Attorney Nebb, was that all of these funds are funneled through a 501c3 before it gets deposited into the fund, so that whoever is providing the funds will get some sort of tax break for it, which would be more of an incentive for them to do it. And most of these items were from other places. I didn't, when we were putting it together, we didn't just, make things up. We did research and we found other cities, and some of them close, some of them far. Like Emeryville is in here. So these are proven line items that other cities have used in order to fund their arts and culture.
And also, I know she's not here, Commissioner Miller, she did bring up businesses as well.
Yeah, so yeah, Commissioner Miller wanted to know if there was a way for us to request funds from businesses. And we didn't really she had to leave the meeting, so we weren't really able to get into that. But it appears that would come under private development, or it could also be under the public-private partnership, because if we're asking businesses to contribute, that would be a partnership with that business. But I agree with Commissioner Miller that we should also approach the businesses in town and see if they would like to contribute as well through a P3. We actually, and one thing that we talked about in the meeting was that we pretty much do P3s already. We don't have it official, but that's what the Maryland Company does, is they contribute to the city of Vallejo, to the arts and culture. I would say that the whole waterfront on the Mare Island side, with the concerts that they have, they're sort of in contract with all those businesses, and those are also public-private partnerships as well to bring arts to the city. And so one of the things that we want to do is we want to just make this official, so that it's not just piecemealed of, a contract here and a contract there, or, this piece of art has been given to us and now it's this one single contract. We should have an overseeing loan and gift policy. We should have an overseeing percent policy, so that it's not just one business at a time, or one company at a time, or one person at a time.
Right, and Attorney Knapp spoke to ordinance versus policy. When some things go in one, other things go in the other. Again, I think it was a very good meeting, very informative. She had ideas as well. Randy had ideas as well. So it's from this document, the draft document, do you want to go over it tonight to perhaps sort of finalize it to the best of your ability? And that would be one of your work plan items, to finalize it. And then we can present it to the attorney's office for review, and then move forward on that. So perhaps you want to do that now, and then address the other items that you want to discuss? Or do you want to go through the other items and then come back to this?
I think we should just continue on with it since we're already on it.
Good, so let's do it.
I concur. Cheers.
Okay. So
You want to start at page 1, the very first page, and
on page 1,
we're
all of the red is what we are going to be adding into the document.
it's the proposed additions, yes.
Or yeah, everything that was in red on that first page.
Can I ask, I know in another place, because of the city attorney, we had to scratch out the reference to 1 and 0.33%. Do we need to do that everywhere that occurs, or that's just great?
My understanding was just for that one item.
Okay, so.
And that was at the request of the city attorney's office specifically?
It was a suggestion
Okay.
Oh, about the deleting?
about deleting the 1 1/3% from the amusements.
Oh, that's on another page.
That's on another page.
Yeah,
I
that's,
thought that you had said that you had accidentally left that in, that you wanted to remove it.
On E, on item E.
Because it didn't come up.
Under amusements, right, yeah.
Because it had come up, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like universally every time, because that number comes up several times, so I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
so for page 1, we're good with page 1. We can move on to page 2. Right? Okay. So on page 2, did you want to add businesses to item C, public-private partnerships?
Let me just read it really quick.
Commissioner Vidor, I don't recall, I have to check my notes. Did we speak about capital improvements on the Zoom call?
Well, the first three, ABC, we did talk about how those were boilerplate, and those are pretty much included in everything, and the language was straight out of other people's policies.
Right, I just want you to mention that.
Yeah. So the first three, A, B, and C, are pretty much boilerplate, and they're taken from other municipalities. So, and one thing that we did do in our first iteration was we add, percent for the arts was generally used to be 1%. And then we discovered that a lot of the cities had issues with the administrative costs of managing all of this. And so we added a 0.33% to cover those administrative costs. So it's 1% that would go into the fund that would fund whatever project we have, and then the 0.33% would go towards the administrative costs. So pay salaries and stuff like that.
Okay, so but you still don't, did you want to add any kind of verbiage towards the businesses that Commissioner Miller brought up during your conversation?
Well, I think private entities covers that.
Okay.
I think after this is ratified, that's when we go out and start soliciting the businesses that we would want to contribute to be those entities.
Okay, so then page 2 is going to be left as is.
I think some notes should start at the very end. Item D on page 2 is where the changes should begin. I would personally suggest in this limitation that we've talked about, even get rid of the word big ticket item sales and just have the header be home sales. Put it there, simplify it, put it there. And then it doesn't even need to be, one among it, but just let that be the header.
Thank you, that's great.
So remove big ticket item and replace that whole big ticket item with the word home.
But the sub-items, sorry, through the chair.
Yeah.
The sub-items we're looking at page 2, bottom of page 2, D,
Yep.
big ticket item sales. Yeah, I know that is kind of scary. But if we change that to only home sales, we've got
Vehicle
item
water.
1 is home sales, item 2 is vehicle sales, item 3 is watercraft sales. Is there some other all-encompassing or a umbrella term that we could use for those?
If I may, I think the idea is, I think we should just cut out water sales and vehicles. There's an agreement that it seems like they wouldn't be fruitful, and they create a lot of obstacles along the way that if we just put the eggs in the home basket. So that's why we're removing the term, is because we are just focusing on homes. Also on this page, on your note, we should add, explicitly write, coordinate with a nonprofit entity to make a nominal voluntary tax deductible contribution. I think we should add the word tax deductible contribution, and then in terms of making it a working document, partner with an umbrella nonprofit organization to process the funds.
Then in that case, I agree with you, cutting the vehicle sales and the watercraft sales from this. I would just encourage us to, at least if this is successful, making that a priority to work with the auto dealerships here in town. I mean, I'm not advocating that we ask Tesla for money, but again, some of the other, you mentioned Avery Green, they're now Vallejo Honda. Some of these folks, again, if we can make it clear that it's a tax-deductible contribution specifically for cultural events in Vallejo, then they're more likely to give something. But that's, again, I think that goes back to the public-private partnerships. Okay. All right. Thank you. Brilliant. Cheers.
So in that case, I would say that under D, when it says home sales, that we just cross off that first, where it says, or not the first part, if a nominal voluntary tax deductible contribution, right? shall be contributed from home sales. And then we will take out vehicle and watercraft sales. I would say that we should put the part about the nonprofit at the beginning in the initial part, so that it just covers everything.
So that sentence will read, a cultural benefit and public art nominal voluntary tax deductible contributions shall be contributed from home sales to fund grants for the arts and culture in Vallejo and public events held within Vallejo city limits. So that's all one big sentence? Right?
Sure?
And where, sorry,
Yep.
where are you saying is the place to mention the nonprofit? Like earlier in the document itself or at the top of that section?
Well, we can't add it to 3.60.010 because that's set, that, other than the words and cultural benefit and the use of the fund. But here at the, when we get into the .030, make fee recommendation to the city council and maintain the public art and cultural project fund into which monetary contributions, and then that is where we would say, managed by a nonprofit,
Administered?
administered, thank you.
Where's that being added?
So that very first paragraph under 3.60.030 on the first page. Bottom of page one.
Oh, okay.
And then it says, yeah, and then maintain the public art and cultural fund, cultural benefit project fund into which monetary contributions administered by a 501c3 for cultural benefit and public art shall be deposited. I don't know if that sounds right. That doesn't sound right to me. Okay.
Will you, because I lost where you were, but will you provide me your draft so I can share it with the commission?
Yeah. Daniel and I will go back and forth and get it all correct, and then we can send it to you. Does that sound good?
Include the third member as well?
Oh, yeah, well, of course, and Margaret.
Right. But where were you adding that? I just said add language, but under...
Page one.
No, I know. Is it the first paragraph or the second paragraph? Okay, and after deposited? Is that where you're adding language after?
In the middle of that sentence.
Oh, contributions there, add, okay.
Contributions administered by, that was where you put that.
But, I'm
Okay.
always open to, if you don't want to put it there, we can put it somewhere else.
I think we can agree on the concept, and you guys can
Okay.
massage the language.
Yeah.
Okay, so then page one, we're done. Page two, we're done.
Oh, we do need to move, since we no longer will have item 1 after it, because all of that will be in it, we do need to explicitly mention the $100 amount in that, just shift that into the paragraph itself.
After tax deductible, a nominal tax deductible voluntary $100 contribution.
Oh, we're on page three?
No, we're still on the bottom of page 2.
And then it goes to the top of page.
We're taking something from page 3 and moving it into page 2.
So we're moving this into page two, and we're taking off 2 and 3 because that's not included. Okay. Got it.
And we had originally left in the percentage on that just because the title of the policy was percent for the arts. And so we felt
So
that there
instead of
needed to
fee,
be a
it's
percent
contribution.
attached to everything. I would like to leave what we have in for the percent for the home sales so it's an either or,
Gives them an
whichever is
option.
higher. That was the idea. But now that I'm thinking about it, actually, If somebody buys a home for $300,000 and they get a 1%, that would be $30. And they might say, well, we'll give you 30, which is, the question is, would we say, yes, we will take your 30 as opposed to the 100?
Absolutely.
Through the chair, through the way you've got it written now is, or a flat fee of $100, whichever is greater. So that kind of takes care of that, right? So that rather than 30, we're asking for 100?
Yeah, but it's voluntary, and so they can voluntarily say, we don't want to give 100, we want to give 30.
You can voluntarily say they're not going to give us anything. Okay, all right, I get it.
Perhaps an addendum here would be to say, instead of a flat fee of $100, is to say a fee of up to $100. $100, or, and then we can include the percentage if we want as well, but to address that from the jump, like if someone wants to give us 30, it's that slight massaging to get those $30 in.
All right, so we're replacing the word fee with contribution.
I think we were going with, or up to a contribution of $100.
So instead of a flat,
Instead of a flat fee of $100, we would say, or up to, and I think we have to have the word voluntary in there.
I think we can delete that section entirely and just have that information in the item D, because we've limited the scope of it enough that I don't think we need the 3 subsections. So I think instead, in the first sentence, you can just say a cultural benefit and public art nominal voluntary tax-deductible contribution of up to $100 shall be contributed from home sales. And you have to, that's all of it there, that sentence. You don't even have to look at the next section.
Thank you. If we go on to amusements,
is there any changes that's going to be made on amusements? Oh, yeah, the golf course and fairgrounds are tabled, so those are both off, correct?
no, we leave them in there, but we don't ask them for anything. That was what Attorney Nebb said, is that we leave it in there, but we don't, what was the word she used? We don't,
Well, they're like a holding pattern. I
Yeah.
think that's what she said, in case, because when these get activated, you
Yeah.
don't have to go back to add them. They're there.
yeah, she said they would be inactive.
Okay, so then is it going to be left in there but notated as inactive? Or
I think-
are you just going to leave it?
I think the way to do it is, since it says contribute a yearly contribution agreed upon by Vallejo City Council, and then that amount that's agreed upon by Vallejo City Council is $0. Right? That essentially is how so it's exactly as it's written will work, and it's just, it is understood that that number will be 0.
Okay, so then,
So we don't have to change anything on it.
okay.
Right, because if in fact the casino comes and the golf course does well and the fairgrounds get developed, then you can come back and basically amend and for the ask. But right now, if you don't include it, there's no holding place, and then you have to go back and add those
Okay.
particular items. So with the understanding that currently there'll be no ask from those 3, right? Casinos, golf course, and fairgrounds, but it's just a holding place when they do become
Successful.
successful, they locate here and become successful, that you have a place to, you already have something in place.
Yeah. In the first part, I think we should decide on a percentage.
Yeah.
Attorney Nebb suggested that we ask for a contribution of a percentage of whatever the city gets.
For the amusement, or we're at amusements
Yeah,
now?
we're
or-
still on e-amusements.
Yeah, amusements.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay.
So on e-amusements, we are crossing out the 1 and 3%, correct? Mm-hmm.
That
All
first
the way
sentence.
down, yep, all the way down to the end of that project fund, and then the beginning sentence will be to fund grants, or, right? Or that part has to be rewritten,
That needs to be rewritten.
okay. And that will be sent to staff Taylor?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of it would be sent to me after the rewrite.
The rewrite,
Okay, is it still going to be amusements as E with the subheading of 1 amusement park, 2 casinos, 3 golf courses, 4 fairgrounds?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I may.
yes.
A suggestion, because this is the other thing we need to land on here, is on that exact amount, with the understanding that when we are putting these numbers here, it is essentially a bargaining chip that will be wheedled down. I would suggest that perhaps we start with asking for 20%, which would be, if it was $1 million, $200,000. What a great amount of money that will become smaller, but why don't we start asking for that larger but still fairly reasonable feeling amount? Would be my suggestion.
I like that 20%. The request, I went to the budget workshop, and so I heard all about what other commissions are getting. And the most was Sister City, right?
Right, but they have the foundation as well.
Yeah, they have a foundation. And where was I going with that? I don't know. That's gone.
May I suggest, again, I know that the money that we receive from Six Flags currently is used for it goes into the general fund. So asking for 20% would deduct 20% of what's already being spent on items that is balancing our budget. So
I did see on the budget, at the budget workshop, that they are going to be requesting more funds from Six Flags than what they're already requesting. Maybe they can build in our request with their citywide request. And I don't know how we would put that in here, or if we would even put that in here.
I think, well, what I do know is that the amount of funds that we receive from Six Flags goes back to originally when Six Flags was first operational. And it was negotiated the amount that we receive now. My understanding is that when there may be an ask to renegotiate what's being given to us by Six Flags. That's perhaps where, if the city's asking for additional, that's where, as Commissioner Wise says, to put an amount in. It's your budget. 20% is high, and
I agree. I'm sorry. I mean, I think 20% is high. I mean, there are other commissions that are, I'm sure, reaching as well.
so perhaps, let's say it gets up to the 1 million that was there before this. It's not, well, whatever it was. It wasn't the amount that, as I stated before, Councilmember Matias said, is not the amount that the city city finance department said, and I checked, so it was lower. So it was less than what he said. It was less than a million. It was definitely less than $1 million. So a percentage, I mean, you're asking for, and this is your discussion, you're asking for 1% of, let's say it's $1 million. What's 1% of $1 million?
It's 100.
I'm trying to do figures off of 900,000.
Right. So no, right. So what's
kind of what I'm
so
doing
that
right
was
now.
that is that not, that's 90,000 or
90,000.
something? That would be 90,000. if it's 900, you know, so what, if it's,
I mean,
if it,
20%.
so if it's increased, if the amount of money that the
15 is
city,
not bad either.
so if the amount of money that the city receives is increased, and you're asking for 1%, 2%, I think that may be more palatable than the 20%, because then I think the city doesn't negotiate like, okay, you're here, I'm here. It's like, here, no. So if it's something reasonable, I think the
How
council.
about a 10% ask?
What if we just ask for 1.33%, because that's what we're asking for.
Exactly, that's,
another
I'm
place.
getting back to that. So I was hoping, thank you.
0.01?
Well, I thought it would be 1.33%, and then 1% would go towards the fund, and then 33% would
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
0.33% would go towards administration.
Thank you for getting there. I didn't want to say that, but
So then,
I just said
on amusement park on E, line 1, we're going to remove the word specified and replace that with the 1.33, correct?
Yep. So it would be 1.33 of the annual contribution.
Percent
Yeah, 1.33% of
of the,
the annual contribution.
okay. Any other changes on page 3?
Grants.
Okay.
We've already done some grants, or,
Yes.
applied for some grants. So I feel that that is just also a boilerplate thing.
No, I think that's good that it's in there, because I was even actually looking at our last work plan. And it's on there, because I think it's super important for them to see what we do with the money, that, we are fully capable of distributing it out across the board, because it didn't just go to artists, it also went to some events, it went to other organizations. For whatever those reasons, within the parameters of the money given, we successfully distributed it. So it's really important that we keep that in there.
and I think it's two different grants. It's grants from the city, if we get general fund money or any other money, that those are the re-granting grants. And then there are the grants like the Bloomberg grant that the commission, applied for, didn't receive. So there's grants from money, re-granting, and then there's applying for grants. So I think this was applying for grants,
Yeah.
I believe.
I think when we were doing this, we were talking about applying for grants.
So we can continue to work with the city, or Sydney Wilson, the city grant person, when grants come up, that we can continue, the commissioner continue to apply for those. So
Okay.
whatever wording you want to, I don't know if you want to change the wording or if the wording is sufficient.
I think it's fine.
This was just straight out of Portland, Oregon.
Okay, well, I think the verbiage is fine. Okay, let's move on to page 4. Oh, wait, okay.
Under grants, there is that, under F, there's that one sentence what, is that a misspelling? Where 1 and 1.3% of totals are, that should be where? Were,
Oh, yes.
Where are you looking?
Yeah, add the H.
Oh. Yes,
is that where?
yes. Thank you.
Well caught.
Okay. Any other typos? Okay,
Page 4. Where are we?
page 4.
And this is private donations. What do people think of the language of that?
Go ahead.
A suggestion. I think the language here is good. I feel like what we could add, thinking back to our earlier conversation, is mention. I think it would be great if we create this pamphlet that we hand out, and perhaps the pamphlet has literally a QR code for direct donation, and we could bring that into here. That we will have mention that we will have a presence at farmers market, thing like that. Something I've been thinking a lot about in terms of our work plan is I would really like to request some money for tabling from the city so that we can get the money back. But that goes into this private donation. This is having that presence, but I think bringing in that pamphlet and having the pamphlet have a way to donate directly.
Do you want to add that into here? Okay, how would you like to do that?
Where do you want to put that and how do you want to word it?
I think at the end of the first sentence of G, volunteers may accept donations at Vallejo events and farmers market, at city promotional booths, as well as a direct donation link via Vallejo Arts promotional material.
Question.
Yes.
When you say commissioners, so you'll accept a donation if someone gives you a check? It means that what you're speaking, collecting monies as opposed to them sending the money. I'm asking the question because I can see
I
that
think-
may raise
Can we
some
put
questions.
it under monetary contributions instead of private donations?
No, it's just how, if you're at a farmer's market and someone wants to give a donation,
Scan the QR.
Yeah.
so if it's cash or if you have the QR code or if it's check, right? I think there's a fiduciary, something that we would have to get from the, and I'm not certain, but something that you may have to get from the city attorney to say that the commission can, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but accept donations such as cash, because that sort of,
But wouldn't it have to be made out directly to the 501?
Yeah. There was.
It would have to be made directly to them, so the QR code would have to go directly to them, which funnels through them into our account, minus that 33%.
but I'm speaking of cash now, or you wouldn't accept
0.33.
cash.
Yeah.
Right.
In my mind, I was envisioning we would have like a bucket at the table, and if people, because I think that it does add up, and if you were at the farmers market, you could easily find yourself getting $100, $500, whatever, every time you're there. So I do think it is worth making sure that we have that fiduciary power, but it may be as simple as it all needs to go through the 501(c)(3) and so perhaps just whoever is manning the table brings that bucket to the nonprofit entity and hands them the cash, who they have the ability to accept it, and you are just sort of serving as a vessel. But I don't know if that gets into some tricky legal territory.
I think if they give cash, they may or may not necessarily want a tax write-off, but if they give cash, perhaps you need a receipt. So perhaps if they give cash, then if you give a receipt, then there is there's a record of money being given. That's my only concern, is someone might say, "Oh, I gave $100," and you only have $20 in the till. So, right? So if you give a receipt, perhaps um, that might do it, but that's a question that can be asked. So when you send me this, can you make sure I ask that question because I think it's a good idea, because I see people, oh, it's a good cause, I have $5 here, and that adds up.
So how are we going to word that under? How are we going to word that under after booths? Can you say it again so I can get it down?
Well, I would say monetary on the second one, on the second paragraph. So it would end with promotional booths, and then monetary contributions of cash or check. I'm not sure, shall be funneled through the 501c3.
Funneled sounds so chic.
Yeah,
Shall be
I know.
deposited in.
What other word could we use?
You mean laundered, don't you? Yes.
Would be deposited with the 501c3?
I think can we use the thing administered by?
Yeah.
How, monetary contributions of cash or check shall be deposited through 501c3.
See, checks aren't that bad, but if you receive cash, I think a receipt should be given.
Yeah, it's similar to like the Goodwill, they give you a thing that you would then take to your tax preparer at the end of the year, showing all of your contributions and things like that.
Yeah, but it's good.
As documentation that you donated or, that you gave.
Right. With a check, you will make it out to the 5013C,
Correct.
and they'll put cultural arts or arts donation. But if it's cash, I think if you're staffing a booth, I think it's always good to give a receipt.
Yeah, and I think we should have one drafted, and I even thought maybe the receipt could be on the back of the brochure, so they will know what their money is going towards, that they're contributing, and there could be some sort of form on the back that we would fill out with the amount, and then they could take that home, and that would be their receipt.
Yeah, but they could write a different amount than that was actually given, just.
No, we would write it, or whoever's manning the booth would write it, and then we
Oh.
would hand it to them as the receipt.
I think we would need a copy of the receipt.
So,
It would have to be one of those receipt books
so
with
it'd
the
have to be an
carbon
N-
copy on the back.
NCRs.
Right. I think you would need, so having it on the, I think maybe you can give the receipt and a copy of the brochure perhaps, but I think you would need to have a copy of the receipt that's been given out.
And then would it have to be a specific one from the city, or could we just get those little books from Office Depot or whatever? They have little receipt books that are NCRs that you fill out all the information and you hand them half, and then you keep the other yellow copy.
Well, one of the things, since we were asking for money, you could do a regular receipt, but have a stamp that has arts, and so you can just stamp instead of having new
Yeah.
receipts created.
Yeah.
A new receipt book created, you could just have a stamp that's on the receipt book, and,
Right.
and that way
That's true.
you can stamp it. Or you can pay to have receipt books made, but I think it's
I think
perhaps
the
less
stamp would be
expensive if it be
awesome.
stamped.
I
Just
think a
have
stamp would be good enough.
That's more official, because then you can't forge that, and then we could sign on top of the stamp.
So part of your ask would be so right now, so far your ask are money for a brochure, to create a brochure, and now a stamp, right? So those are so far.
Correct.
And $200,000 for re-granting, too.
Right, no, just, yeah.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
right. No, this
So
just.
maybe this is a yes to the stamp. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about right now, physical,
I know, yes.
things, yeah.
And then an additional
A receipt book as well.
receipt book,
You're right.
plus tabling, like sort of a tabling fund, I guess, to have a presence at the events. We may need, depending on, like, I think like the farmer's market, I believe I looked this up.
Well, I
it's-
think since we have 7 seats on our commission, I don't think it would be outlandish if we all signed up and did, and had a schedule.
I mean, to pay for the table itself, not for staffing the table. That's all our volunteering for sure. But
Right. So for farmers market, you don't have to pay because it's informational, and the city has a table there, and different departments rotate through that. But for other events, they may. I don't know if they charge for information boosts or not, but it depends on. You have to look at what events you may want to table, and then come up with a budget for that as well.
Okay. So any other changes or anything for page 4?
I think that so we've gone through the first paragraph and the second paragraph. I think the third paragraph, multiple building permits issued, should go back up to, I think it just got moved down with everything as things were added, and that might need to go back up to either the public-private partnership or private development. I think it goes under private development. So yeah, so that's multiple building permits issued within a 3-year period, has nothing to do with private donations.
That's true.
So I think that just gets moved back up to item
C.
C.
So is that going to be C3? Does that become C3 at that
Oh, no, I
point?
think it goes to private development because it's about,
Is that
So then that would become B4?
B4, yeah. Because what it talks about is if a developer gets a whole bunch of permits, that those permits are aggregate and that they don't have to continuously pay on each permit, that the permits become one single thing that we look at for the 1.33%. And that we're not going to, each permit isn't going to be tagged with 1.33%. Does that make sense?
Did you get that, Staff Taylor?
right now? I'm thinking so. So a building permit. Are they all building permits or building permit up over a certain amount? Because
It was $300,000. If the development is in excess of $300,000, that's what kicks in the 1.33%.
Okay, so because that's only reason I asked is that should be somewhere. I know you have it under B1.
Maybe it's been repeated, maybe it just needs to be,
Yeah, right, because as you know, well, you're down there on the second floor, and building permits can be very costly for single-family homeowner or a small business person. So
Yeah.
I would not. I don't know if you want to engage with them or the larger building permits.
Well, is it, so B line 1, how it already says private, non-residential, and non-live work, building developments with building development costs in excess of $300,000 and subject to design review. So all of that, does that not already include that whole line?
Yeah, that's why we were wondering if we should just eliminate that line.
Just eliminate the line.
Yeah.
Which line?
The one at the end on
at
page 4.
G- On page 4, the third paragraph.
Or just eliminate multiple building permits? Is that?
Correct. Remove that whole line, or that whole.
Oh, so you're not moving it, it's, because it's already included elsewhere?
Correct. Because it's already mentioned on line B1 on page 2.
Well, it doesn't really talk about the number of permits that a developer would need to get for a building permit. And it expands not just building permits, but there are numerous other permits that they would have to get, like electrical permits, plumbing permits. And we don't want to ding them for every single one of these things. We want to just look at it as a project as a whole, and in the end, and then you know, they can get a printout of what the total amount of permits was, and that would be where we would get the 1.33%. And it would be at the end of the development when it's completed. Because you never know what's going to come up and what new things you're going to have to put in, or sprinkler systems, or.
So it says multiple building permits issued within a 3-year period for a single project shall be considered in the aggregate and determine the allocation. There's a number 7 there, but that goes away, right? Or you, as a footnote, that was a footnote for something. Right, do you see the footnote number 7?
Culver City must have said that. I mean, that's what I get from that,
Yeah, that was Culver
from this
City.
page.
Yeah.
All right,
That-
so you
that
can
was
remove
where
the
she grabbed that
7.
from.
You can remove the 7, right?
Is that the only 7 on here?
Well, it's from Culver City's policy, and I was just referencing where they came from. So I don't know if we're going to need all of the,
Are you referencing the other? Oh, I see.
yeah, all those little numbers are just references to other policies, just so
Okay.
that people knew where we got them from.
Yeah, that's right.
So the question is, when you do the ordinance, I don't think you reference where,
No.
so maybe you want to keep it here if you want to discuss it with someone, but it would not be included in
No.
the final.
No, those would not.
This is an internal document, basically, right now.
Right.
So these would be removed before they went to the council. Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. All the little tiny numbers, that's just for us to know where it came from.
Yeah, that's just for our reference.
Okay, so, but you're moving that sentence to be 1?
It was part of that already, and it just got pushed down as we added other items in for like C, D, E.
Right, so where are you suggesting that it goes?
Yeah, so it just needs to be put back up under B1, basically.
But how and where?
Is B4 maybe?
Under the first, under the last sentence, on the development site too, and then you add it there?
Multiple building permits issued with it. Yeah, that would make sense there.
Yeah. So we want to put it after 3?
No, at the very end of 1.
Very end of E1, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Art on the development site,
Oh,
multiple building permits issued, and then
Yep.
it shows that extra in addition.
Excellent, yes.
Okay, yeah, that works there. Let me re-highlight this, sorry.
And the final 2 paragraphs reference the, let's see, so the approval, the second to last is approval of expenditures from municipal arts accounts will include but are not limited to granting, grant making, and these are the things that we would be able to do with this money.
Yeah,
Arts events, festivals, acquisition, siting, maintenance, deassessing of public art. and I thought we were very adamant that at least 51% of the funds be used in Vallejo by Vallejo artists for Vallejo events. But events may not be put on by a Vallejo organization as long as that event takes place in Vallejo, I think is the most important part.
Where is the remaining 49% going?
Well, that's the 49% would be if an outside organization brought a festival here to Vallejo, like the Pirate Festival is a good example. They are not from Vallejo, they're from Sebastopol, but they would bring the Pirate Festival here every year, and it was specifically a Vallejo festival.
So the question is, wouldn't that be covered under cultural organization and events within a yearly funding cycle, or events in Vallejo?
We could change, yeah, wording can be changed however
Yeah,
we want it.
because I would think that, because it makes it sound that you'll be able to spend money outside of Vallejo, and you may want to do that. That's the question for this commission.
Well, I mean, one of the ways that we would maybe spend money outside of Vallejo if we were to send a delegation of our youth artists to a festival or to a conference or something like that. That would be something that would not be within Vallejo, but it would support our Vallejo artists.
I just wrote down 49% goes towards arts and culture, non-Vallejo resident. No?
I don't think we want to say non-Vallejo residents.
Or from,
I mean, either
Outside
keep it as it is, then you can explain it when.
I think maybe do that.
Explain it when
Because
when
it
it's
looks
asked,
funny
and
on
it,
paper.
yeah, and then it gives you more ability.
Yeah. The idea was just to keep as much in Vallejo as possible and to spend that money in Vallejo.
And I'll just put that.
Because I don't know if you really need to put a percentage.
That was what other cities had done, so I just copied.
Okay. No, it's up to you, because you would think that, I mean, like for, like say, if this commission wants to go to training someplace, or like I say, youth commission. So
That would be great if we
it's-
had funding to go to other places and talk to other culture and arts commissions.
learn, not talk to learn.
Or, well, like, conferences and things like that, so that way we can better serve our community through our commission. If they have those available and the city, lets us know that they're available so we can attend them. That would
Or
be
maybe
great.
even something, nearby field trip to a city that has a great art program.
Culver City road trip.
And because Commissioner Vidor and former Commissioner Sawande, we went to San Francisco for a training. And that was paid out of the Economic Development Department budget at the time. And so things of that nature may come up. So
Yeah.
you may want to include in your ask for training or workshops, training and workshops. Just in case something comes up, at least it's in the budget.
Then can we add that after festivals and before and the acquisition?
No, I think that's just part of your ask.
Or it's just part of the ask?
I mean, that's just part of your
my
ask
work plan ask.
for your work plan.
Okay.
I think that some of the language in the final paragraph needs to be changed since it's going to be administered through a 501c3. And it said the city council, city staff with the guidance of the Commission on Culture and the Arts and City Council shall administer funds. So that needs to be changed because sounds like we're going to have it administered through a 501c3.
True.
I think we can just get rid of the word administer funds and instead just have it say shall provide vision, planning, project management, and administration, and just remove the few words where it says that we're administering the funds. And I think that gets us what you're getting at.
Yeah, I think that will work out, because then we mentioned the 501c3 up on monetary contributions already, so I feel as long as we have that mentioned within G, it shows that, you know, how it's going to be distributed, and, right? I agree, so we're going to remove administer funds and on the last paragraph of page 4.
Thank you. I think that does it.
And that covers the proofing.
Well, the hour is 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
and
Sorry.
we started late.
We did
because
start
of,
late.
Because of
That
the
wasn't our fault.
other meetings, so you've done the long-term funding, which is great, because that was a big one. Okay, thanks.
You kicking us out, Manny?
No, just the opposite. So attending events and having a booth, I think that was sort of discussed already, so that's there.
Outreach to property owners.
Outreach, that's part of the ordinance, okay.
The grants and substance of Bloomberg grants are the
So
only.
funding, has that been fully discussed, or do you have more to say about funding? Nope, that's,
I just have one last thing about funding, and I think we should continue to ask for funds from the city
Oh, yeah.
until this is ratified and even afterwards.
Well, I think that it should just be added as a line for the funding.
no part of your work plan, it's,
Creating the budget
it's,
for that.
no, it's $200,000 for regranting.
Yeah.
And so that would be part of your budget. And it's for regranting. So that's funding. Grants, we sort of, that and these Bloomberg grants sort of go hand in hand. So I know we want to continue to, we touched on it just briefly, that continue to work with Sydney Wilson to look for grants that we may be able to apply for.
Not only look for them, but if there's any way we could try to speed the process, so that way it's easier to meet all the deadlines, because it seems like by the time we get it, and by the time we actually get the grants proposed and everything, it's like barely even cutting it. So if there was a way where we can either streamline it or have better communication so we can expedite it quicker.
Well, previously we were getting them monthly, and then that had stopped for a while because we changed who we were doing our grants with. So all of you have the capacity to look for grants, as well as rely on city to find grants. So if there's a grant that you see that you may want, arts and culture, just bring it to me. We can look into it, we'll talk with Sydney, and we can go from there. So, because sometimes we get the notice late, but sometimes you know when grants are, And I think Commissioner Vidor and Commissioner Cook has brought grants before us before. So,
Yeah. I'd also like to say that the two grants the grant proposals that we put together, I see no reason why we can't use those again.
Yeah.
The Bloomberg grant was fantastic and included the entire city and our youth in both a spoken word and a mural project that would happen in each one of the districts and then culminate in a final event at the Art Walk. And if we can find a granting organization that would want to support this, or if we can find numerous granting organizations who might want to support this, I think that's great. Then also the NEA grant that we wrote was all about re-granting, and there's no reason why we can't use that one as well again, because it's pretty much what we want anyway.
Okay. Okay.
so is that grants and Bloomberg grants, or is there more to be said?
I'm gonna look around for grants to bring to the commission. And I know Commissioner Wise was saying that the NEA grants were probably not the best thing to go for right now.
I did have a thought after that. I stand behind that quite firmly. It did occur to me we do have a very historic 4th of July parade, and we could potentially actually work within the parameters they've set to get something if we wanted to really hyper-target it. I don't know how much we want to do that, but that was after that meeting and thinking about it. I was like, we do actually have this one specific thing. Also, I couldn't help but notice that the only thing I've seen the federal government do very quickly is put up new signs for the historic ships on Mare Island. So things like that. If there are some, we may be close, there may be some areas where we could align ourselves that don't feel terrible, but we have to be very hyper-specific if we want any chance at all.
Yeah, I agree. And also, the other government granting organization that we always sort of forget about is the NEH, which is the National Endowment for Humanities, which does fall under cultural events. And now that we have the tall mast ships here from the Hyde Street Pier, maybe that will help with this very American granting.
That's the most diplomatic way to say that. Thank you.
Right, and you know, if this commission wants to go after a grant like that, we can always ask a Mare Island company to partner with us and others.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
That covers.
just to cover this, what will occur is the ad hoc committee will convene and draft the edits that were proposed this evening and send it to me, and I will send it out to the commission. What the next step is also working on, so this is a part of the work plan, but then coming back with a budget for the flyer, the stamp, what training you may want to do, and the $200,000 for regranting. So you may want to, as commissioners, just look online and see what training that may be out there, and something, usually in the Bay Area, if you go to Southern California, that's the cost of a hotel room, and there goes your money, air flight, and so something close that maybe you can, drive to. If you look in the area, find something there, and that can become part of your budget. As far as the flyer, depending on, and we can discuss this at next month's meeting if you like, because we can carry over the item work plan discussion for next month, and if one of you want to see how much, or you can talk about it next month, or say you want a threefold flyer color, you can check and see how much that that might cost.
I think we could bring prices to the
Yeah,
next
something like that.
plan in the middle.
And then, you know, the stamp that just says,
Yeah. And a
City
QR
of,
code.
City of Vallejo, City of Vallejo Commission of Culture and the Arts, a stamp like that, see how much that would cost. And we know that $200,000 for regranting is $200,000 for regranting.
I just want to say, actually, I'm happy to volunteer to get printing costs. It is my day-to-day job involves dealing with printers, so I'm happy to.
Okay.
The printer that you deal with, do they also make stamps, the stamps as well?
Rubber stamp.
A stamp, I suspect we could get cheaper just from like Lowe's or something. Like, I think that's the way. I don't think we that. But I can look into it.
No, but the stamp will say City of Vallejo, so it will, it would be made specifically? Okay. It would say City of Vallejo Commission Culture and Arts.
And we would need some sort of design.
We
Right.
can get a price on that too, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
No problem.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we'll just
yeah,
bring
someone
it
wants
to
to
the next
design it.
meeting. Okay, so when is our next meeting? Let me take a look.
It's not next week, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, May 26th?
May 26th. I don't think that is Memorial Day weekend.
That's Memorial Day.
So what happens then?
Well, we can either do we can look at doing a special meeting sometime in May.
Can
The
we,
week maybe the week before.
I just need to know ahead of time so I could let my work know, so
Or
I'm
if you,
okay with it so long as I can.
or if that Monday's a holiday, that's the 26th, if we can look at Tuesdays, probably no, maybe a Wednesday or Thursday that week.
Yeah, that would be better.
So the week, the week of the 26th, either a,
Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday or
28th
Thursday.
or 29th.
so the
Whenever it's available.
plan is first and third, right? Mondays.
Yes,
But when the holiday's on a Monday, they go to Wednesday.
yes.
So Wednesday may not be.
So we should try Thursday?
So I'll see.
You want
well-
to just email us?
Thursday might be AHLC. No, it wouldn't, because that's too late in the month. No, okay.
Through the chair, currently there are no meetings scheduled for either the 28th or the 29th.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But
Okay.
I know that it will be on the 28th. That will happen for planning.
So maybe
Okay.
we should book the 29th
Okay,
if we can.
okay.
So next meeting will be hopefully May 29th.
Okay.
Okay, and we motion to adjourn? Work plan
Yeah.
So moved.
2025?
So somebody, are you making the motions?
I'm making the motion.
Second the motion.
Okay, adjourn at 8:11, 8:12.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, boy. Good job, guys.